everyone, and welcome to the Fast Chat. I am Rochelle Butler, Energy Manager with the San Joaquin Clean Energy Organization. I hope everyone's doing well and getting ready for Christmas. I have to admit, with everything going on this year, getting into the Christmas spirit has been a bit challenging, but I hope we're all getting through it. We have somehow made it to the final Fast Chat of 2020. Just a heads up, in years past, we've generally taken either December or January off for a break, but we're going to go straight through this year. So we're going to continue to bring you the Funded Fast Chat each second Tuesday of the month. We really hope this information will help you find ways to get your projects funded and even inspire ideas for new projects. As always, we'll get going in just a moment, but first we've got some housekeeping. Please make note that all of your microphones have been muted upon joining the call. This is simply to minimize background noise. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to submit them using your chat box. I really encourage you to do that at any point of the presentation. If something comes to mind, I don't want to miss out on the opportunity to hear any questions or thoughts you might have. I always save just a bit of time at the end of the presentation to address any of those questions and comments. If you do submit a question and for some reason we're unable to answer it during the call, for example, we might need to do some additional research, or it's possible we might just run out of time, please be sure to keep an eye out for our follow-up email. In that email, we will provide responses to all unanswered questions, as well as a link to the recording of this presentation and links to any other resources we discussed during the call. And with that, we're ready to jump in. I have a lot for you this morning. First, to kind of get us going, I want to discuss what a grid interactive efficient building is and what's the benefit to having it. Just a little side note here, I have the efficient in parentheses because it isn't presented that way in the funding opportunity announcement, but the efficient portion is implied. So there's really no way to make this all work if the facility isn't efficient. Let's see. All right. So I have a ton of really cool stuff on this slide here. All of these items you see all represent different components of the grid interactive system that we're going to talk about this morning. So a grid interactive system generally consists of about 4 different elements. First is a connection to your utility electricity grid. So we have our transformer there, Bumblebee. He's going to represent our grid for us this morning. Next, we need a locally generated renewable such as wind or solar. In some cases, it can be a combination of the two, which is called a hybrid system. Third is our electric vehicle charging, or EV charging for short. And lastly, we need an on-site battery backup or some kind of energy storage. Of course, these are all examples. A project is certainly not limited to these elements, but I believe they're the most essential for our purposes this morning. All of these components used in concert can create what's called a grid interactive system. In an ideal situation, the renewable generation and battery backup allow for what's called net metering. This is a really fancy term for when your system is unable to generate enough energy for your operations, you can draw energy from the grid. Alternatively, when you produce too much, you can sell that excess energy back to the grid. So the goal of net metering is to become what we call net zero, in that over the course of a period of time, usually 1 year, you send as much power back to the grid as you purchase from the grid. The other component, the electric vehicle charging, serves a couple of different purposes as well. Of course, we are moving to a point where electric vehicle fleets will become the norm, and so we will need to have adequate methods of keeping them in service. But your electric vehicle fleet can also serve as a battery backup given the right equipment is installed. Why is that a good thing? Well, there are some limitations to battery backups that are currently on the market now. It's still relatively new technology, and depending on your particular requirements, for example, if you need some emergency facilities to be operable in the event of a power outage for a certain amount of time, the electric vehicles can provide additional capacity for your battery backup. So I kind of like to think of these as giant batteries that we drive around in. Let's talk about some characteristics of a grid interactive efficient building. The 4 that I want to highlight today are efficient, connected, smart, and flexible. So the graphic you see on your screen is actually from an energy.gov study on efficient grid interactive buildings that was published in April of 2019. This and the funding opportunity we're going to talk about shortly all support the Department of Building Technology's office initiative to make buildings smarter and use energy more efficiently. This initiative is called the Grid Interactive Efficient Buildings, or GEB initiative. So back to our characteristics. The efficient characteristic is referring to having a persistent low energy use, minimizing demand on grid resources and infrastructure. So to put that plainly, the goal is to ensure that the buildings are using the least amount of energy possible in their operations. Connected is referring to the two-way communication that is involving flexible technologies, the grid, and the building's occupants. The smart characteristic is in reference to analytics that are supported by sensors and controls that co-optimize efficiency, flexibility, and occupant preferences. So this basically means that the building is able to make active adjustments to optimize energy use. And then flexible loads and distributed generation or storage can be used to reduce, shift, or modulate energy use, that's fancy language for balancing everything all out. So all of these elements reduce stress on our power grid, and I would imagine more importantly, they provide for an integrated way to optimize when certain kinds of energy is used, which results in energy savings. Okay, so now let's talk about our funding opportunity. I know there's a lot on this slide, but bear with me. The Connected Communities Funding Opportunity is issued by the Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy, EERE, on behalf of the Buildings Technology Office, or BTO. The high-level goal here is to demonstrate the ability of efficient buildings to interact with the grid and to provide demand flexibility. This includes the ability to shift and modulate load in both existing and new communities across diverse climates, geographies, building types, and grid regulatory structures, while maintaining, if not enhancing, occupant satisfaction and productivity. The Building Technologies Office, through this FOA, seeks to expand its network of grid interactive communities across the nation. Now that we understand a little bit more about grid interactive buildings in general and the FOA, or Funding Opportunity Announcement, FOA is short for that, I'd like to talk about the application process and some important dates to keep in mind going forward. So this FOA was originally released on October 13, 2020. There was an informational webinar on November 10th of 2020, but not to worry, attendance at this webinar in no way impacts your potential application. Also, if you missed it, and I'm assuming if you're listening to this fast chat, you probably missed it, the recording is also available. So we'll be sure to provide you with a link to that webinar in our follow-up email later on today. Concept papers can be submitted on an ongoing basis until February 17th, 2021. If anyone on the call is not familiar with what a concept paper is, it's actually a pretty cool concept, if you will, because it allows applicants to get feedback on their project ideas prior to making the heavy lift of investing a substantial amount of time and resources into a final application. The concept paper allows you to have a much better idea of how favorable your project will be to the reviewing board before you actually submit the application. So there's a lot of opportunities that presents there. The deadline for full and final applications is March 3rd, 2021. Now that timeline's not impossibly ambitious if you are interested in going after it. There's still a few months left to kind of get your act together. May 4th, 2021 is the anticipated timeline for when replies to reviewer comments will be due. Selection notifications are expected around July 1, 2021, and award negotiations are expected to wrap up around September 16th, 2021. So this kind of gives you a good framework of the timeline that we're working with for this opportunity. Now, let's talk about the money. The total pot of money is $65 million, which sounds huge. The intent is for there to be between 4 and 6 awards of up to $7 million apiece. The estimated period of performance for each award is 3 to 5 years, so this is definitely a longer-term project undertaking. Some of the overarching goals of the project are to see if and how much diverse groups of buildings can reliably and cost-effectively serve as grid assets. Analyzing the interaction between energy efficiency and demand flexibility measures, demonstrating how DERs, which stands for distributed energy resources, such as managed charging of electric vehicles, can contribute to overall building load management. Demonstrate how hardware, software, and communications can be used to make buildings grid interactive. What are the impacts on occupancy and how willing or able occupants are to modify their energy usage? Demonstrate the value of demand flexibility and DER integration and how well this information and project model can scale up. So the last item I kind of want you to keep in mind too is this is a regional pilot project. The Building Technologies Office will be looking to award projects in distinctly different regions. As with all funding opportunities through the Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy, there are a few things applicants must kind of plan ahead for. You must register in advance to create an account in EERE Exchange. This site also houses other funding opportunities in case you're interested in checking those out as well. You must, if you do not already have one, obtain a Dun & Bradstreet number. If you're unfamiliar with this, it stands for Data Universal Numbering System. This is a number that's commonly used to identify organizations. Next, you must register with SAM, not Sam of the SJV CEO, but the System for Award Management. This must be done annually, so if it's been a while, you might want to take a look and make sure that you're current. You must register with Fed Connect. Finally, you must register in grants.gov to receive automatic updates when amendments to a funding opportunity announcement are posted. If you have any follow-up questions about any of these items I just mentioned, I know it's a lot, but please reach out to us we would be more than happy to kind of help you along with any of these. And then finally, applicants actually must submit a concept paper. So no application will be accepted without first having submitted a concept paper. And I mentioned just a moment ago why those concept papers are they're pretty helpful for everyone involved. Some other helpful things to keep in mind: if you don't remember much of what I've discussed this morning immediately after the call, please remember this. Take advantage of the teaming list. If you're, and you might be thinking, gosh, this is an immense project, I'll never gather the resources to pull something like this off. The first thing you need to do is check that teaming list. I will provide a link to it in the follow-up email, as well as instructions on how to get your organization listed on that teaming list. So the teaming list is updated weekly, and it contains other organizations from many different disciplines that are looking to partner to complete these projects, specifically this funding opportunity. Last I checked, there were about 130 different organizations looking to partner on one of these projects. So I highly encourage you, even if you're even remotely interested, to go ahead and put yourself on this list immediately and kind of begin making those connections with potential partner organizations. And finally, another thing to keep in mind is that distressed communities should really take special notice of this opportunity because they do receive special consideration. And by distressed, they're referring to the qualified opportunity zones, which is a distinction that was added to the Internal Revenue Code in 2017. So if you have any follow-up questions about that, I'd be happy to show you where to go and look and see if you are, if your particular community is on that list. Now, I came across a presentation from earlier this year that talked about projects that have been awarded recently under this particular funding. I'm gonna fly right through these because we really don't have much time left, but I think it's important to kind of get an idea of what these projects kind of look like and give you a framework. So the first project here is a multifamily project. It consists of 2 multi-use buildings containing a total of 52 multi-family units. The EE measures that were incorporated are cold climate heat pumps, advanced air sealing, connected water heater and appliances, and LED lighting. This project also incorporates rooftop solar and EV charging. Next on the list, we have a smart community driven by AI, or artificial intelligence technology. This consists of a collection of 27 brand new construction townhomes. The EE measures were high efficiency homes. That's considered a measure. Cold climate heat pumps, heat pump water heaters, and connected thermostats. This project also incorporates rooftop solar, battery storage, EV chargers, and a virtual microgrid, which is what the AI component is. Next, we have an educational campus. This project consists of between 4 and 8 commercial buildings on 3 separate campuses. The EE measures included are agent-based transactive controls for existing HVAC as well as lighting. They also incorporated solar, battery, and thermal storage, and EV chargers. And last but certainly not least, we have the GT Flex. Besides having a really cool name, this project consists of 12 to 18 existing educational buildings at Georgia Tech, so that university down south. They incorporated optimized controls for existing HVAC and will include a central plant upgrade. They'll also include battery and thermal storage. This project is still in the works. Okay, so I wanted to give you an idea of what projects are successful in this process. If you would like any additional information on any of these projects, please don't hesitate to reach out. I will also include a link to the slide deck for this presentation in our follow-up email after the call this morning. Okay, and then finally, I just wanted you to kind of come away with some things to kind of be thinking about, or questions, you know, you should be asking yourself or those at your organization. For example, what about some input from our utility representatives, because a project like this is definitely going to be an all hands on deck type of project. We want to be asking ourselves, do we have any facilities in our building inventory that would make sense to participate? For example, some things that came to my mind was, would it make sense for our wastewater treatment plant or government facilities or fire or police departments, would it make sense to make them demand responsive to the grid? Do we have a local government-owned housing facility that would benefit from this type of energy delivery structure? Also, the state of California does have some ambitious goals for carbon neutrality. So how might a project like this help my city or county reach some of those goals while also supporting EV charging? So just some kind of things to keep in mind. And that is going to wrap up my presentation for this morning. I'm going to kind of slow it down a little bit here. So if anyone has any questions or anything comes to mind, you can go ahead and submit them into the chat box if you haven't done so already. While you are working on submitting those questions, I would just like to remind everyone to please look out for our follow-up email later on today. That email will include a link to the recording of this presentation, as well as links to all of the resources I mentioned during the call, including any past fast chats that might have been relevant to today's conversation. Please take a quick second and add us to your email contacts list. We want to be sure you're receiving our communications so that you can stay up to date on what's going on. That email is info@sjvcleanenergy.org. And now I'll take a really quick peek and see if there are any questions in our chat box. And I don't see anything here, so I guess I'll just go ahead and wrap us up. I encourage everyone listening, please share the fast chat with your friends and colleagues. You never know how this information, or you never know who might benefit from this information, and even how this information might inspire ideas for new projects. Our next fast chat is on the calendar for January 12th at 10 a.m. We will announce that topic very soon. And as always, we appreciate you for being with us this morning. We also invite you to connect with the SJV CEO on social media. We are on Instagram, Twitter, and Spotify. We can also connect the old-fashioned way through email or on our website. You can also get valuable information through our many platforms, of course, the Funded Fast Chat, but we also have our blog EE, where we feature articles on what's going on around the partnership, workforce development, as well as technology in the energy efficiency space. Finally, our newly launched Pod EE, which features the audio version of many of the articles we publish. We'll have some exciting updates on that in the coming new year. Above all, our sole purpose is to connect you with resources that will help you get your projects done. In the meantime, if you would like to listen to any of our past fast chats, you can find them at sjvcleanenergy.org. Again, that is sjvcleanenergy.org under the resources heading. A very happy holidays and happy new year to you all from the SJV CEO, and we'll see you in 2021.